Hey everyone, it's DXM here. Kind of wanted to make just a quick video going over the 10.1.7 changes for our Druid, just in case, I don't stream enough and people have questions or whatever. I'll make a quick video to explain a lot of stuff going on. I want it to be pretty quick, pretty in-depth, for as in-depth as I can be with a short amount of time. And yeah, I'm not going to hold your guys' hand as much because I have faith that you guys are smart enough to be able to figure a lot of the stuff out on your own. So I'm just going to jump right into it. In 10.1.7, they're adding 3 new talents. They're adding a talent called Grove Guardians. They're adding to Wild Synthesis, the talent below Nourish. They're getting rid of Deep Focus, adding in Master Shapeshifter. And they're changing Embrace of the Dream to be 1 talent point. It guarantees the instant healing. And it also works with your regrowth. Now, so in short, those are the changes they're making. I'm going to go over the most important one. And this is going to be a majority of the talking point of the video. Grove Guardians. An incredibly strong talent. You'll notice I press this button, it casts Wild Growth, it then also instantly casts Swift Mend, and then it spams Nourish. The Nourish also smart heals, and the Nourish does work like the Nourish in your talent tree. It does get a bonus from your mastery, 300%. So, this is a really good talent for filling in a lot of the spots that our Druid has currently in keys. Bosses like Skycap and Crag, Sentinel Telandris, I think is the most notable one. First boss of Neltharian's Lair can be pretty obnoxious. Harlan Sweet is also a really good button for it. It's on-demand instant healing. It's off the global, which I think is probably the most broken part about it, and you can use it in any form. So you notice, I could be cat weaving, whatever. Oh, I kind of want to press this button to get some uptime on it because it's a 20-second recharge and they last for 15 seconds and spam Nourish for 15 seconds. Oh, I want to do some damage though still. You can press it while you're on global and just sit in whatever form you want. Doesn't matter what form, it's any form, you can cast it. This is a very strong button. It presses 3 of your best buttons and it's off global. What this means is you lose 0 uptime on anything, and you can press this button for free. It's just a free amount of healing, very bursty, and just very good for the current weak spots in healing our Druid has in keys. It is a very, very, very good talent, and that's going to be the majority of your game plan shift when it comes to keys when 10.1.7 comes out. You're going to be pressing that button pretty much off cooldown. You can use it as a 1-minute burst CD because you can just press all 3 at once, right? So I press Wild Growth and then I spam all 3 at once. I get 4 Wild Growths out. They're pressing Swift Mend. They're spamming Nourish on people for 15 seconds. It's a very, very bursty 1-minute CD. You can use it that way, or you can use it another way, which is pressing them one by one, pretty much every 20 seconds. That means you would get 75% uptime on having them just spam Nourish on people passively without you having to lose any uptime for pressing the button. Pretty good. Obviously, you're going to do a mix of both of that. If there's packs where you don't need them all out at once, you can just press it, off cooldown, get 1 out every now and again, just for some free extra healing. Or you can get to a boss like the last boss of Vortex Pinnacle, or maybe you do want to use it a little bit burstier. You might want to use it as a 1-minute CD, and you just press all 3 at once, and you get functionally what's the same thing as a Flourish ramp. This is basically just almost like another Flourish button, but it's a lot more versatile because it can be like a quarter Flourish, it can be a full Flourish, it can be 3/4 of a Flourish, or whatever. A very good button, very important to our game plan. It does not buff your mastery, so the Wild Growths that they cast do not buff your mastery, but your mastery buffs it. So if you watch, it said 1367 right there. I'll press it again just to show you. It says 1367 damage every 1 second, right? If I press Rejuve on myself and then press it, it's 1527. So it does get buffed by your mastery. Pretty important thing to know. But it does not buff your mastery. So if you press Wild Growth, or you press Grove Guardians, it gets the Wild Growth out, right? And you press Rejuve, that Rejuve will not be buffed from this, but this will buff the Wild Growth. It's kind of weird that it works that way, but it might be broken if it didn't work that way. Another important thing to know is the Wild Growth does also get buffed by Circle. It's not the hugest thing on the planet, but that's another consideration that you can take as far as Grove Guardians goes, is that if you have Circle, the hot from Wild Growth does get shortened. It does not proc Nature's Vigil. This is probably the biggest thing about it because of how bursty and how much healing this provides. It does not proc Nature's Vigil as far as I'm aware on the PTR. This is, yeah, it kind of sucks, but it would be pretty unhealthy if it did. Our Druid would do a lot more damage, and it would really need to tune some things if they wanted it to do damage to Nature's Vigil. So just keep that in mind. When you press this button, it's strictly for healing. You don't need to press it during your ramp at all to try and squeeze out some more damage, right? You don't need to do that. You already do that enough anyway with stuff like Send Ward, min-maxing, and whatever, so don't worry about that. When you press this, notice it presses Swift Mend pretty much immediately. The Swift Mend does not take any hots, so if you have a rejuve on somebody, right, if I have rejuve on myself, and I press the button, it's not going to take that rejuve. Don't worry about it taking any hots, even though it casts Swift Mend, you're fine. It's just your Swift Mend that takes a hot. Because they cast Nourish, and because of how it interacts with the fact that it does get buffed by your mastery, we're going to be going a lot more mastery, I think, in 10.1.7. I personally am experimenting with just running some haste mastery rings, and then everything else is haste first. That's what I'm probably going to be trying, especially if you have Beacon. Beacon adds a lot more mastery too. I'm sitting at about 12.5%, I think, on mastery. 11.5%, my bad. I think it's pretty good in my experience. It's actually been really nice. Because I used to set at 7%, and then I got these rings, and I got these rings, and then I got Beacon, and I went up to like 11.5%, and there's a noticeable difference. I haven't been able to test this obviously in PTR because there's not really anyone doing PTR keys, but I presume that this is going to feel really good with Grove Guardians. So that's what I'm looking at. Probably going to be going more mastery. But you're not going to be going full haste mastery or anything. You still need to do damage. You still need to live mechanics with versatility. So don't fret too much. It's just your jewel crafting pieces might want to go haste mastery instead of haste verse. Another thing to know about the trees is they also work with your stats. As far as my testing goes, as far as I've been able to figure out, they take your stats. So what this means is when they spam Nourish, depending on your haste, the cast time will be faster. The more crit you have, the likelier they are to crit with their stuff. The more verse, obviously, the more flat healing they might get. And the more mastery, I told you how the mastery interaction works. So they do work with your stats. Keep that in mind. Not very important. I don't think you're going to be changing your stats to help your trees, really, outside of just the mastery thing. Like you're not gonna be going crit just to make your trees crit more. It's not you're not gonna be doing that, but that's an important thing. No, and that's about it. I think as far as like the important stuff, a couple of the other changes to go over. They're pretty short. They got rid of deep focus, gone. It was a bad talent. Nobody used it. They replaced it with Master Shapeshifter. It was a PvP talent. Now it's just an actual Rested Druid talent. Replaces deep focus. What it does is it just increases your damage pretty much flat on if you're in those forms. So Moonkin form gets 30% increased damage on Wraths, Starfire, and Star Surge, and that's just baseline. And those abilities also generate mana whenever you press them. Cat form, Rip, Ferocious Bite, and Maim deal 60% increased damage. And then if you have 5 combo points in cat form and you press one of those abilities, you'll also get 10,000 mana. Important to note that you don't need to be at 5 combo points to get the extra damage. That's just baseline. If you want to get the mana though in cat form, you need to have 5 combo points. So that's how it works. It's a pretty good talent. I think it's going to be dungeon specific as far as like which one is the best, which one you're going to use. Example of what I mean is like Underrot and Braconite. I think Master Shapeshifter is going to really shine. Underrot, first boss, a lot of prio damage. It's just a lot of extra damage. Makes managing all your dots and stuff easier. A lot less tight. It's going to be a weird gameplay shift playing without circle. But it might be a nice one. It might be a welcome one for a lot of you because I know that I'm kind of alone in liking circle as a talent because I'm so used to it and I find it kind of fun having to manage super tight like timing on windows and hot timings and stuff. So, you know, Master Shapeshifter, it might help a lot of you. This is now a talent that where you don't need to play Circle of Life and Death because it's so restrictive and Deep Focus was so bad that you were kind of forced to just always play Circle. This is strictly just a damage talent though, so if you're not making use of, you know, Boomy Weaving or Cat Weaving, you're losing a lot of value in Master Shapeshifter, in which case I would still tell you, even if you're struggling with mana or timings on Circle of Life and Death and uptime, you should still be playing it. Try to get better at Circle of Life and Death, try to get better at your mana management. But for those of us who do Cat Weave and do Owl Weave and mix in damage between our globals, Master Shapeshifter is a pretty good talent. The most benefit you're going to get out of this talent, I think, is the last boss of Braconide for the totems. Currently, the way our Druid works in that fight is you're building up combo points the whole time, and then you spend them on a Ferocious Bite on the totem, and then you Star Surge, and then you kind of just do whatever after that. That's currently the way you play our Druid on that fight. And it's really bad because if you fall behind, let's say a totem goes off, you're kind of screwed for the rest of the fight because you have to play catch up now. Now you have to keep up all of your haunts on people. The fight instantly turns. If one of the totems goes off, the fight instantly turns into a healing fight. So you can't build those combo points and spend them on the totem because you're spending all of your globals up before the next totem on keeping people alive from the dot. So this talent is going to help a lot with that. And it will help with your mana management too, both because you get mana for pressing these buttons, and you also won't have Circle, and Circle demands a lot of mana, and it demands a lot of haste to make use of. So, pretty good talent that they're adding. They're also adding Embrace of the... They're not adding, but they are fixing Embrace of the Dream to be better than it was, but it's still bad. Embrace of the Dream, 1 talent point. It guaranteed does the healing at a reduced effectiveness of what it used to be, but it also procs on your Rejuve and your Regrowth now, which is pretty good. Problem is, this is still really bad. The way that they could have fixed this is if the Wild Growth that you use to proc it would also work with Grove Guardian's Wild Growth. Currently, it's just your Wild Growth that procs Embrace of the Dream, which makes this talent still pretty dead, just not good. Don't take it. Tranquility has been in question. I've heard some people say that they're probably not going to run Tranquility, or they're thinking about not running it. I personally don't like that idea. I like having an extra healing cooldown. Even as bad as Tranquility is, I still like having an extra healing cooldown. The reason why you wouldn't take Tranquility, by the way, now is because of how good Grove Guardians is. This is a very broken button, and it is just kind of a strictly better Tranquility. So some people think there's not room for Tranquility anymore. Personally, I disagree. I still like having an extra healing button, but let's say the meta turns out where you don't play Tranquility. If you were to not play Tranquility, this is probably something I would do. I would have improved Ironbark, get rid of Cultivation because you don't really need this now with Grove Guardians. Get rid of Trank, put a point into Budding Leaves. That way you still get some Budding Leaves and you still get Harmonious Blooming. Because the talent tree is way tighter now with Grove Guardians. You're losing like 1 or 2 talent points because you need Wild Synthesis now. You can't just skip down and put a point into like Cultivation or whatever. Now you need Wild Synthesis. So not having Trank allows you to get another point in Budding Leaves, which is pretty good. Again, I personally don't like this. I'm personally not going to do it. But that's another thing that'll be happening. I noticed on my class tree, I have Maim. I think Druid struggles in the utility bus right now, and having Maim allows you to suck a little bit less. It's worse than Hodge, but it's still a kidney, right? It's still a button you can press. It locks down a prow target, for example, and you get rewarded for even pressing it at 5 combo points. Because if you press it at 5 combo points, well, Master Shapeshifter, that's a free 10,000 mana. It might not be much, but if you to put it into perspective, the mana you get from a heroic Rashox is 7,000 mana. So Master Shapeshifter gives you a pretty decent amount of mana. It rewards you for pressing Maim. I'm going to mess around with it personally. I'm not saying this will be the meta, but this is what I will be messing around with. I'm not running Wild Charge because I would just... or Tiger Dash, because I don't think it's necessary currently in keys. The only dungeon where I do think it is kind of necessary is Halls of Infusion. In that key, I take Tiger Dash, just because it helps a lot with the first boss, and it helps a lot with the Gauntlet on the last boss. But that's what I'm doing. So this is what my talent tree might be looking like in 10.17. Obviously, Circle and Master Shapeshifter, you're going to swap around depending on the key. But yeah, this is the talent tree that I'm looking at for the most part. As like a general talent tree, this is probably what I will be running in 10.17 for a good amount of keys. I'd be very optimistic about the changes they're making to our Druid. I think they're pretty good. I think they're a step in the right direction. I don't think it'll dethrone HPAL. HPAL is very strong for reasons outside of any amount of throughput or damage our Druid could do, unless HPAL literally did like half the healing. HPAL currently, the immunities and the DRs is just way too overbearing for any other healer to compete with in the current key climate. So I don't think it's going to dethrone HPAL, but I think this would make another healer playable in high level keys. I'd be very optimistic, but I appreciate all you guys watching. I didn't answer every single question. There's some stuff I left out just for the sake of brevity and you know, speeding things up as much as possible. So I'm going to plug myself, obviously. If you want to ask me any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments. I do also stream sometimes at twitch.tv/DXMWow. So feel free to stop by if I'm streaming. ask me a question. I'd be more than happy to answer. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And you should look forward to the Druid changes. They're pretty good. Yeah. Oh, another thing. Before I go, make sure that Grove Guardians, because it's off global, you're going to be pressing it a lot. You're going to want it on an easy keybind because you're going to be pressing it a lot. So don't be like me and put it on Shift G. This is a terrible keybind. I just have no space left for anything. Put it on something like F or T or G or E or R or whatever button that you can. Put it on an easy button because you're going to be pressing this a lot and you're going to be pressing it with other globals a lot. So just make sure you do that. I'm going to go.